today we're going to talk about one of the most interesting. Every book that we publish is, of course, interesting. There are no below average books at AUS Press, but this one was especially fun. The title is Stateless. It's by Lara Chen, Chen-Chi Chen. That's Lara here. And it's a translation and adaptation from a book first published in Japanese. And then in Chinese. And English third, that's about right, I think. Unfortunately, we also, one of the fun aspects of this book was working with the translator, Louis Scarlett, who can't be here with us, but is himself a talented translator and a labor activist in Japan, so brought a great perspective to this. So Lara has a PhD in international political economy from the University of Tsukuba. She's been researching at different places, including Chinese University of Hong Kong, Harvard, Todai, University of Tokyo, sometime in ARI at NUS also, Asia Research Institute, and was working at the National Museum of Ethnology in Osaka before teaching now at Waseda University since 2013, so for some time. Our discussant today is Kazue Takamura. She teaches at McGill, that's far away in Canada, and she teaches international development, but her interest really is migration and vulnerable populations in migration. She's worked particularly with the Filipina caregivers in Canada, for example, and working on the vulnerabilities that they face and how Canada can do a better job looking after them and welcoming them. And she's very focused on state policy and the gaps that policy leaves for migrants and people between places, between citizenships. I will conclude with something a little bit, maybe a little bit provocative, but many of the young people that I know and talk to about what excites them intellectually and so on, are very focused on transgender issues. And as an older person, I'm not sure exactly why, but of course they're very dedicated to, very invested in the difficulties, injustices, problems of fitting into social categories that are very strict, very fixed, have very strong determinations of behavior and so on that go with them. And when people don't fit into those categories in a neat and tidy way, how do you deal with the problems? How do you make room for the people? How do you protect the people who are vulnerable because they don't fit into this category which seems to many people completely fixed and natural? I would argue that citizenship is not too far away. We're assigned it at birth. We don't have a chance to, well, some of it we can choose, but making those choices later in life is difficult. And those of you who don't fit exactly in those categories are vulnerable. So the people who are most vulnerable in any international conflict are those who do not have strongly established citizenship and statehood. So I do see a parallel. I do see a fascinating process of, as we try to increase and think about more about social justice in the world, I do see a fascinating process of thinking about how these categories work and do not work in the efforts to more social justice. So with that little bit of highfalutin stuff, I'll pass the discussion over to Lara.
Okay, just to introduce her book, perhaps I can contribute 2 points. So the first point is about the journey, her journey to publish this book, Stateless, in English by NUS Press, 2024. It took a long journey, and I observed as a friend, so I'll briefly talk about that. And the second point, I should elaborate on the unique impact of the book. So I should begin with the journey to the publication of the book. And I met her Lana in Canberra. I met her through a conference on Chinese diaspora, and she told me about her study also about statelessness and Chinese, in linkage between statelessness and Chinese diaspora. I also accompanied her field trip to Brunei to visit stateless person, which is included in her book. And also I sort of observe or learn about her journey from stateless, as a stateless individual, to obtain citizenship in Japan, the process and struggles to obtain citizenship in order to do further research on statelessness. So she decided to take Japanese citizenship to understand the process of switching, the transition from statelessness to obtaining citizenship. And also she published originally, Peter also mentioned originally this Mukokuseki stateless in Japanese in 2005, so which is 20 years ago. And perhaps we should mention that this book, in English version, which included also not just autobiography, she uses the term autoethnography, but about her experience as a stateless person, but also expanded to her advocacy and research on stateless person in Japan and beyond. So it's really unique in terms of not just one of the few autobiography of autoethnography written by a stateless person, but also unpack that I would say Asian statelessness account in Asia. I think it's quite limited in the dominant literature of statelessness because it's much focusing on Western scholar, written by Western scholars. So I think it's really important, unique perspective. Back in 2001, she was talking about, she told me about her passion to document. She even went to film school to make a documentary on stateless person. She wanted to first humanize this issue. And I think which is really important because dominant study of statelessness, perhaps much more state-centric perspective, I would say, and not necessarily focusing on everyday accounts of stateless person. So her approach is really ethnographic, anthropological, focusing on everyday account of stateless person. So I would say it's really important. And it's important, I guess, contribution is that unpack the stateless experience by Chinese diaspora, which is, I think, is important. But we are in Singapore, we are in Southeast Asia, we hear a history of statelessness, particular experience by Chinese diaspora groups in Indonesia, Philippines, and then now there's something very limited understanding, I would say, the statelessness experience by Chinese diaspora in Japan, and we unpack that important history. So I think it's also that's one of the really impactful contribution.
I would like to write not totally research-based book, but rather based on my own life history, what I experienced, and also how I get into the research on Chinese diaspora and also the stateless issue. I've been stateless for 30 years until I wanted to conduct the research in Brunei and other places. I had to get the nationality, but I was really reluctant to, because I, as born and raised as a stateless person without nationality, but with the legal residency, I always, objectively see the nation state objectively. Yeah, always thinking this, I'm here already, but why you have to categorize me based on the citizenship or nationality or the passport I hold. So I was very reluctant to naturalize to Japanese, but because they always don't want me to be Japanese, right? So I was reluctant to. So that's how I started this research and interview people, and then I wanted to know how they feel, and how I also wanted to know how they perceive, me and the people. I have one biggest message in this book is to let people to have the positive image of statelessness, because you don't have to belong to only one nation state. We have the different layer of the identity, as I mentioned, as a rainbow in metaphor. I'm Chinese in last name and born in Japan, and I was studied in America or Hong Kong, and speak different language like Chinese. When I speak Chinese and when I speak Japanese, when I speak English, maybe I'm different person. I have a different character or personality. That's I wanted to mention here. Say have the different perspective of the stateless, not only from the legal point of view, to see this as a negative image, but rather we can maybe stateless are more free. They have more freedom to, I can belong to it anywhere. And through my rainbow metaphor, I say they can be very important individual to bridge the global society. I founded Stateless Network, the NGO groups supporting stateless people, and also do the advocacy work on this issue. We also have some, called members say, yeah, they actually, some people, yes, they want to get the nationality, but some people say we are happy to be stateless. At least if they can have the legal residency, they are happy to be stateless. So I just want to raise this question, say maybe through history, through historical research, or through the research of the every individual, we can rethink today's global society, like is the citizenship or the nationality or the passport really reasonable, or really work in our life? Because we already have people with dual nationality or multiple nationality, so we don't have to think always from the negative side. We can, from the positive side, we can give some hints to today, for the future state building, or international or global society. That's what I want to share with you. Thank you very much. First of all, I have to let you know there's a different type of the stateless people. And some stateless people, they have a legal rights in the society. I was one of the case with the legal residentship, but no passport. Then how I travel was using the travel document issued by Japan, which usually gives issued to the refugee or people who cannot get this passport. They will have the travel document, and then we have to get a visa to the destination country, and also to when we back to Japan. insurance, if you have the legal status, then you can have. This is one type of status, and the undocumented status is tough. If they are undocumented, then the insurance, no insurance, especially in the case I studied in Japan, no insurance, so you have to pay 100% by yourself. And if you are undocumented, forget it. They are the case about some in provisional release, but want to be deported, but nowhere to be deported. I was born in 1971 in Japan from Chinese parents. Father from Harbin, and he is now 103. So if you count it, you will know he himself experienced Manchuria period, and then World War II and Civil War, and then they couldn't stay in China, so they moved to Taiwan after Civil War. And my mom's side is, my mother is from Hunan Yiyang, and my grandfather of my mom's side is the general of KMT. So that's another reason they couldn't stay in China, so moved to Taiwan. And my parents met in Taiwan in Beitou. And I have 6 siblings. I'm the youngest, and my brother and sister are all born in Taiwan, and I'm the only one born in Japan. My father moved to Japan in his 50s for his study and so on, and he decided, he got a job in China, like a Chinese association in Yokohama, in Chinese community in Yokohama. So he decided to ask my mom to move to Japan in 1961. So my mom came with all 5 kids to Japan in 1961 and stopped to live in Yokohama. And in 72, Japan Japan normalized the relationship with PRC China, and in the other side they cut the relationship with ROC, Republic of China, Taiwan. Many of the overseas Chinese in Japan at that time, they were carrying ROC passport. So that was a big shock for the Chinese community in Japan. So they say, oh, Japan is not gonna recognize our nationality. What should we do? So some people shift their nationality and naturalize to Japan, and some people shift to PRC China. And my parents, they say, oh, my father was reluctant to shift to PRC nationality because of his ideology. And my mom said no Japanese nationality because of my grandfather. Even my grandfather hit her when she decided to move to Japan. So she said, I cannot do this. They decided not to choose Japanese, neither PRC passport. And then we were too poor to migrate to the third country. So we decided to be just stateless. So I was 1 year old, so I didn't know. And when I was 16, I had to get the ID card from Japanese office. So I went to the office, and it's called Gaikokujin Torokusho, the for alien registration card. They put me Mukokuseki. I said, what this means? Because my father and mother educate me, say you are Chinese. But on ID card is different. My father mentioned about the history that I couldn't really understand. And when I was 21, one day, we had the Chen Clan Association. That happened in, we had a convention in Manila. I told my dad, said, I want to go. My dad said, it's so troublesome to get a visa. And I said, I will do everything, so don't worry. So I do all these visa thing, and then finally we got the visa to go to Philippines. And after a few days in Philippines, our ticket was transit in Taiwan, Taipei, and then to Japan. So on our way back, my mom suddenly said, hey, why don't we stop over in Taiwan to have some good food and then see my brother working in Taiwan. So we decided to go stop over in Taiwan. So at that time we say, 回台湾, we usually say, go back to Taiwan, return to 回台湾, return to Taiwan. Because we think we had that kind of identity, so we belong to Taiwan. And when we passed the immigration, my dad passed and my mom passed, and when I tried to pass, I had the passport issued by Taiwan, but my passport was start with the X, which means overseas Chinese passport, and you have to get the visa in order to get into Taiwan, because I had no family registration in Taiwan, so I do need visa in order to get into Taiwan. So the immigration counter said, oh, 你不能进, those, hey, you cannot enter. I said, why? I'm back to my country. Why not? Then many officers came and see my, no. Everybody said no. And then I told my mom, and then mommy was with, 他不让我进. And I told they don't let me in. And my mom said, huh? Okay, 那我叫二姐去接你. She said, oh, I will call your sister to pick you up in Haneda. So they went into Taiwan, and I'm the only one back to terminal. Changed my flight, everything, and wait for a few hours and back to Japan. I was so exhausted, so I wanted to get into Japan very first because I have no baggage. So I stand in the very first, and then say, oh, I should give the re-entry permit to Japan. And Japan see my travel doctor and said, you wait there, and told me to wait in the bench. And I was waiting there for 30 minutes or 1 hour, I think. And the officer told me to get into the office room and say, oh, your visa is expired. You cannot enter Japan anymore. So please go back. I said, go back to where? I said, I'm the one born and raised in Japan, and I'm living in Yokohama, and where should I return? They said, your visa is already expired, and you, without renewing visa, you go abroad, so your permanent residentship will be useless. You will cancel, so you cannot enter Japan anymore. I was like so shocked, and then cannot say anything, just, and then that's my first time to realize, oh, I'm really stateless. I had the ID card, but I didn't know that what it means until I experienced that in the airport and realized, oh, there's really border exists, and there's, oh, I'm really stateless. So this is what really happened, and this could be happening, around you today as well. Because from the activity we are doing, we have quite a few people who, mailing us, and they want to get a passport, how should that they do, or they want to get married, how can they get married, these kind of things. Yeah, I wish more people can realize stateless people are living around you. Yeah, and this is there's a rather legal limitation that many nationality or citizenship, these legal things have some loophole. Yeah, I think from childhood, maybe that starts from childhood and then and gradually getting bigger and bigger. And I think after you get adult, then you have the duty to vote. I think that's when people have to think, oh, I belong to this society, then the country. Yeah, that's how people gradually have the bigger, the different layer. But today, what I think there's a loophole is every nation state has different rules. That's why they have the loophole. Like we're talking about Chinese diaspora. I study about Chinese diaspora in Japan and in Malaysia or in Indonesia where we just visit, or in Thailand, are so different. And then if you were born in US, you will get the citizenship of US right away, but not in Japan. Today we just work about the immigration policy change in Japan. They try to expand the denial of the permanent residency. One of our colleague, our community leader, he's 84 years old, born in Japan, raised in Japan, and have all the business in Japan. But he's so upset with this issue. He might be, kicked out from the country where he's been so long. The nation state government is always changing their policy. And I think we should have our freedom to choose where we belong or which country. So that's why I love to study about migration, to study more about what they are thinking, and I think through their thought and their way of life, we can, also shed the light on every nation state which they choose. And that's the mirror of two sides to see the international society and the individual. Yeah, this is after 1985. Yeah, they changed the law in 1984 and started in 1985. Yeah, if one of the parents are Japanese, then okay. But before, your father has to be Japanese. If mother is Japanese, you still cannot. So I also have the case about Okinawan American. Okinawan lady had the baby with American Army, and born the kids in Okinawa, in Japan, then end up the kids cannot get the Japanese nationality because Japan will consider the kids as American, not Okinawan ladies' kids. Because of this, there's a discrimination toward female. So they changed the law in 1984. Then after that, then either one of your parents are Japanese, then it's okay. But now, still, we have some case of called Japanese Filipino children. The Filipino lady came to Japan and have the relationship with Japanese male, and they end up have baby born in Japan. But if they are not legally married, the kids cannot get the Japanese nationality. And their mom, some of the mom is undocumented or overstayer, they will not turn the birth certificate to the Philippine embassy, only to Japan. Then the kids will be recognized as Filipino in Japan. But actually they don't have the Filipino nationality. So end up stateless. I also mentioned it, here. Yeah, there's some cases if you are not legally registered in.
Something like Singapore.
Yeah, we
Every
have-
country has the gray area, as you said, the rules don't fit, there are these gaps, because every country
Yeah.
has their own rules.
Yeah, we have stateless in Singapore as well. And last year, maybe you saw the Abang Adik, the film Abang Adik in Malaysia. Yeah, we also have the cases in Malaysia as well. And many we don't realize, but they are living around us.
Let's give a round of applause.